You don't fix behaviour by punishing children. You change it by understanding them. Head teacher Fiona Booth shares how a relationship-first approach is transforming the lives of pupils, staff, and families in real time. If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours. Hello and welcome back to the Able to Care podcast. I'm your host, Andy Baker. And today we're asking what happens when a school leads with compassion, not compliance. My guest is Fiona Booth, head teacher at St. Nicholas Church of England Primary Academy, and someone who lives the model that behaviour is communication and knows that connection needs to come before correction, and is working with it and living it on a day-to-day basis. With 12 years of leadership and a vision to be the light in a child's life, Fiona is a standout voice in relationship-based education. Her school recently featured in a BBC piece showcasing their transformative approach. And today we go deeper into the why, the how, and the human stories behind it all. We'll talk about understanding behaviour, shaping school culture, and how educational leadership grounded in empathy and lived experience can change everything, not just for pupils, but for staff and systems too. Thank you so much for joining me this morning, Fiona.
Thank you. What an introduction.
Yeah, it's set high expectations for you now. So I know we've had a conversation before and it was great to kind of we've got so many kind of shared values and beliefs and it was pointed in your direction for exactly that reason. But I'm looking forward to find out more about how you kind of lead your school and the stuff that you do. So let's start off. What does it mean to be a relationship-centered school and why is it needed now more than ever?
Oh, that's a great question and one that people who have never seen leadership in that model really struggle with. I think it's fair to say that we're living in a time of what feels like never-ending shade. And so light would seem to be the antidote to that. And whilst that doesn't mean being ridiculously smiley and clapping at everything that happens, it does mean that even as people hurt, we've got hope. And relationship-centric means that we think about people first because everything else will follow thereafter. But if you are hurting or you feel unseen, lost, like you don't belong, then where do you start from? You're just in constant chaos and feeling like you're at home with someone or in a place of people means that so much more is possible than if you don't. And so it means seeing people, it means valuing people for who they are, where they are, and kind of taking account of what you've got, not what you wish you had, not what you once had before, but what you've got right here and right now and finding the light in it because we all carry one.
Yes, we'll definitely come on to that, which I know is a kind of big mantra of the school itself and your philosophy come into that as well. So when a child is struggling then, what's the first thing that you look for as a head teacher?
When they're struggling, it's a really good question. As head teacher, it becomes different because as class teacher, you're your mum, your nurse, your counsellor, you're the teddy bear, you're the sticking plaster, you're all of that. As head teacher, you're almost one step removed, your perspective changes. And so I would be looking for the untold story, the story that the behaviour is trying to tell us, to share with us. So my job starts really with the wider family and what's happening there. What have we missed? What have we not heard about? Shame drives such a lot of behaviour that we see, and that kind of self-imposed shame that comes with not being able to feed your children or to keep them warm or to buy a new pair of plimsolls if the ones they've got have got a hole in. And so really, if we've got a child exhibiting behaviour that suggests they're in distress, my job is to find out why, to try and understand so that we can meet the need. And obviously, my primary job is to keep people safe. So once we've established whether or not everybody's safe, then we can really get to grips with what that human being needs. The kind of Maslow before Bloom or Bloom before Maslow argument becomes the kind of hot topic of conversation. We want love to be our legacy. We're not afraid of using the word love. And so if a child feels that that's under threat, then my job as head is to start to signpost teachers to why that might be, to start to signpost parents to how they can get help, and to, you've said it before, become the lighthouse in the storm, not necessarily sorting anything, not necessarily shouting about anything, but saying, you are safe here. Let's guide you to where you can help yourself. And that becomes intrinsic to the job that I do.
You said there is quite difficult to answer from a head teacher's point of view. And I can imagine it is, because I should imagine an awful lot of what you've done is actually the changing culture and philosophy from all of the staff. So it's a case of monitoring that from above as well, isn't it? So doing everything that you said you were doing there, but it's also how have you helped teachers to move from that mindset of focusing on necessarily the behaviour to managing the behaviour to better understanding the behaviour?
In the same way that we've done with children and with parents, we are all human beings with one connecting factor, which is the desire to be loved and to share love. And really, the culture that exists here and now, that breathes in every area of school, is as a result of having lived it for so long. Almost that tried and tested theory had to meet staff where they have been, because as humans we rock up to work with a whole load of stuff that's happened at home, and building those connections with staff has been intrinsic to developing a culture of belonging. You don't have belonging without trust, and in order to trust you have to be vulnerable, and in order to be vulnerable you have to be able to feel safe to share your soul with somebody. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. The culture, I have a quote on my wall, actually. I will turn and have a look at it. It says, the culture of your school or classroom isn't a thing that's separate from you. It's made up of you, your actions, your expectations, what you permit or prohibit. The minute you stop breathing life into it, it starts to die. And that's from a book called Running the Room by Tom Bennett. And it's shaped everything. And so from the minute I walked into this school, every interaction, every decision, every new kind of approach to anything has always been grounded in, does it facilitate shining? Whether that's of staff, parents, children, that's been irrelevant. We are humans, all the same, wanting the same thing, to feel that we belong. And so, yeah, my job is to ensure that we're living into that, leaning into it, particularly when times are tricky. That's when it's a real test, isn't it? Do we lean in or do we lean away from our values? And that's where they become our crutches. So, yes, the bigger job is to ensure that staff are living out that commitment to facilitating shining, totally separate and distinct from any religious standpoint, that secular idea of you bring something unique and special because you are you. And we work to serve that uniqueness and that you-ness. Another quote that we have actually in our toilets is "Nobody is you-ier than you," and we want to cherish that. And if we suddenly shout when we should listen, if we should suddenly say we don't have time when that's all that somebody needs, that erodes the trust and that opportunity for vulnerability, which is when the real heart work happens. So yeah, staff have learned it and learn to live it because they themselves receive it.
That was beautiful. I love the some of the bits you said there were beautiful.
Right.
And I think that's the concept, isn't it? You're creating this entire culture. So the staff are living the same way, or you're treating the staff in the same way as you want the staff to treat the children, and it becomes that entire culture.
My class, the staff are my class, because I miss having a class. I really genuinely miss having my little island of a classroom, and so the staff become my class, and
Nice.
they don't seem offended by being called that.
No, well, but that should be promoted as well, shouldn't it? Is that I think there is teachers out there, or certain education settings, that the teachers start the job and think they're done learning, and actually that should be the whole thing. Absolutely, isn't it? The amount invested in training and continual professional development and things like that should be, we should be role modeling. Hey, look how important learning is. We still do it as teachers, which is why you should do it as kids.
And I think that's, again, I say my primary job is to keep people safe, but it's also to be the role model of a learner, and to be the lead learner. Head teacher is, I don't know, a bit archaic, I guess, but lead learner suggests that I'm leading that charge. There's so much to learn from everything we do, and if I can support staff to be bold enough to undertake I've just had one of our staff ask me if she can do an MPQ, and it is the biggest thing for her to have found the courage to do that, because I've long told her she's incredible. The only person that hasn't believed that is her, and she's now at a stage where she feels ready to scratch that itch of wanting to learn more, and knowing that she's got light to give in that training course. When she turns up to those meetings, those networks, she too can contribute to the glow, if you like.
Yeah. Can you think of a moment when leading with compassion has changed everything for a child?
Oh, too many to mention. And I'm going to be quite generic so as not to identify a person or a family through answering. But this family has now left school, and I won't swear, but there is a swear word in the quote that I'm about to use. And this lady had a single mum worked really tirelessly to ensure that her child was coming to school regularly. And she engaged with me through some real challenges, and was compassionate enough herself to see what I was trying to do. I used to say to her, this discomfort is teaching us something. Discomfort is a teacher too. And towards the end of the time that her child was in school, I was stood on gate duty, as I do every day. And she walked towards me, and I'd got a new family having a tour. And she kind of half shouted over her shoulder, "Oh, this place was when she took over, and now look at it. It's awesome. I'd tell everyone to come here." That was a real defining moment. It was a seal of approval. It was a stamp of, we've been through some really, really challenging times together, and we've kind of come out of it changed. And in school, we've developed a language of spirituality, which is really simple. It's that these spiritual moments happen all of the time, and they are moments that you go into a situation feeling one way and you come away from it changed. And for her to say that to me, I felt that, her soul had been kept healthy. Her soul had grown, her soul health had developed and been nourished. You mentioned in the introduction about us being on the BBC, and really there were so many tales and examples of what leading with compassion does in terms of transforming lives. One man came back to be interviewed. His children had all left. We'd had 5 of his children through school, and he was very open with the national journalist about his struggles with alcoholism and depression, substance abuse. And he sat in a hall with a total stranger and opened his heart and just said, if it wasn't for this place, then I don't think I'd still be here. And his is not a lone voice. So I have another lady who won't mind me talking to you about her by name, Kerry. She is one of our midday supervisors. She started, I first got to know her as a parent here, and she was in a really dark place. She wouldn't come out of her house. It was around the time of COVID. Anxiety really isolated her. And she got to the point where she tried on a couple of occasions to end her life. And I said to her, why don't you come and sit in the library? Come and have a read of a book with me. And over the last 6 years, we've gone from there to, she's now a midday supervisor. She volunteers every hour that she can afford to give to us. She runs Breakfast Club, and she cites the compassion that she was shown as not just a transformer, but a lifesaver. So I think there are so many, many stories that have in turn fueled me again. You don't necessarily know at the time. When this dad spoke to the journalist, I was still in the room, and it made me sob. I'd no idea that school had been that steadfast for him. So it was the touchstone I needed to go again, as those seasons do come, where you think, oh, are we really getting where I think we're getting? There are uphill struggles all of the time, but so many times when leading with compassion has stopped me in my tracks.
Well, it sounds like you're not just impacting on the children, but you're massively impacting on the parents as well. You're almost creating a sense of community around the school, which I think there's so many parents who dream of that relationship with the school, as far as that connectivity and having information, feeling as a trusted place they're sending their children. It's such a huge responsibility as a school, isn't it? To take care of people's children on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, that sounds incredibly meaningful. And obviously it must radiate from the school, or it sounds like it is, within the community, which is incredibly positive.
Good word,
now, there is
radiate.
So obviously there is some people out there who feel that kind of your more relationship-based practice, and this unfortunately includes some people in quite high positions within the educational system and things like that. I heard somebody referring to that one of the reasons that kids don't want to go to school is because parents are making homes too comfortable, and therefore they should be making homes less comfortable so that children actually go to school. Have you come across people kind of feeling that your approaches are too soft, or they're not rigorous enough? Have you had to overcome some resistance?
As with anything that resembles something that's slightly different, there's always the spectrum of opinion about whether it's right or wrong. For people who say homes are too comfortable, I would question what's happened in their life to make them assert that. But if we've got education without relationships, we've just got information. We don't have a family whereby, we're intricately connected as this ecosystem that depends on one another for its survival. And yes, I all of the time come across people who think, oh, you're just soft, you just let children get away with things. Well, one of my kind of biggest motivators was a quote from Jacinda Ardern, the previous president of New Zealand, Prime Minister of New Zealand. And she said she refused to believe that you can't be both compassionate and strong. And she had faced criticism for being too kind. I mean, let's just repeat those words, too kind. I fail to see how that's possible. And that has fueled me. It feels really personal when anybody evaluates or critiques the approach, because it is ever so interconnected with me as a person, not me as a professional, but me as a person. And everybody craves approval. Everybody craves a clan, find your clan. But here, in order to shine, there are certain limitations. There are certain guidelines. There are certain, they're now unspoken, but at first they were very explicitly spoken, expectations. And something that I keep coming across in various guises is how much of a privilege it is to feel pressure, because it means something's expected of you, and you can see my whole body language has just changed. That's how we go about things here. And the very first thing that was a visual indicator to the great out there about my expectations, and it sounds ridiculous now, but it's absolutely intrinsic to the path we're on, was having shirts tucked in. And I'd say to my class initially, because I was a teacher here first, a supply teacher actually, if you look smart, you think smart, and then if you think smart, you are smart. And this whole notion of tucking our shirt in became symbolic of what it means to belong here. And Mrs. Booth expects you to tuck your shirt in, so you want to belong to that, tuck it in. And then other things came after that. You take care of your coat on the peg. You, when we graduated to lockers, you look after them. And then that implies, if we're looking after those little things, then goodness knows how we approach the big things. We must really take careful consideration of how we implement new plans, how we consider what new resource to use, how we set up games on the playground, the curriculum decisions we make, the data decisions we make. Because if you're making, or if you're collecting data that doesn't improve the life of a child, I would I'd question why we're collecting that data. And I've always said of data, here we go with the light thing again, it needs to be more of a torch than a hammer. So use data. I absolutely want our children to be the best they can be. And that has implications for everything. It starts with tucking your shirt in. Who knows where it will end? Will you be Prime Minister? Will you be the next primary school teacher? Will you serve me in Asda next time I go? Those aspirations and expectations that are bred with relationship-centric approaches, they're so interconnected. And to ignore that is at your peril, because what you're saying to people is, I don't care. And I don't want anyone to feel uncared for, because once you do feel cared for, everything changes. Once you feel protected, there was a big push in the government around protected characteristics, and children must understand what those mean. I totally agree, but they need to have some context to that. They need to understand what being protected means. And we're so lucky at St. Nick's because our school family comes from all over the world. We currently have 22 different languages spoken here in just 200 children. And in a town like Boston, where extreme views exist, often extreme right views, and often views that only exist due to misunderstanding, lack of exposure, and I kind of feel like our job is to be part of the tapestry that helps that compass just reorientate, so that children are equipped with the skills they need to navigate in the world. They are not going to be able to navigate a world where I say, oh yeah, behave as you wish, that's fine, because that's not how life works. However, if the first thing I've done is say, wow, I love your new haircut, or look at your snazzy socks, or how did your football team do last night? You instantly feel like you matter. And then the next interaction that we have might be because you've tipped a table over, you are more likely to listen to me saying, just put that back, because of the value I've already shown to you. So I could be really quite rude about the people that say, it's a soft approach. I quite honestly think it's much more stringent than any other I could employ, because it has to be bespoke to every human being. It has to respond to need. It has to respond to changing need and those seasons of need. So if children aren't given the chance to feel that someone's proud of them, they'll never show pride. If they're not given the chance to take a risk, they'll never know what a safe risk is. If children aren't stood up for and respected, why on earth should they show that to anybody else? So a really long-winded way of saying I've got some very clear boundaries that if the social contract that we have by setting those is broken, then our entire school family suffers. And because of the value each member feels, they don't want to do that to their school family. So
there's a few bits in there that were, again, really wonderful. We could go down a rabbit hole on lots of little different bits of that. The one thing I kind of think is really important that you did say there was, I think there is some people who perceive empathy and boundaries as like two opposites, but they're 100% not. They're synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
And therefore, it shouldn't be a soft approach. It should be very boundaried, but we don't have to be non-empathic. We don't have to be non-understanding to be able to maintain a boundary. What I really like to see...
The minute we do, it all is lost.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
I said earlier, love needs to be our legacy. Sometimes love sounds like, no, thank you. And sometimes love sounds like, oh, that's amazing. And sometimes it sounds like, I'm really sorry. Let me sit with you a while.
Yeah. That's the nature of human connection, isn't it? And I love the shirts tucking in thing. There was an element of inspiration rather than just the fear of condemnation, to get people to tuck their shirts in. And I try and get this over. Do you want a child to engage in good manners because they're scared not to, or because they recognize it being more beneficial and positive to engage with people in a kind way? And just as soon as you put in that, and I think, as you said, there are some people who struggle with it, but how do they want to be treated in their job? Who are they more likely to accept feedback from? A boss or a manager who just only pays them attention when they do something wrong, or somebody who actually cares about them and seems to value them? Like, all adults recognize this in their day-to-day as their job, but then they seem to have these different rules of how they think then children should be managed and supported.
Completely. And I go back to a little bit intertwined with the protected characteristics dialogue that came about a few years ago in education. But if you can't see it, if you can't feel it, how can you become it? If you've never experienced it, how can you give it? And that weight is a heavy one for our team to carry, because it requires consistency and it requires day in, day out. You remember, the moment you stop breathing life into it, it starts to die. But the benefits, who knows where the impact of that will end. We don't, because the generations that we're teaching now have got whole lives to go and live. Yeah.
So when you've been at the school, you said you started off as a sub, and then kind of stepped into a supply teacher. Yeah. Stepped into now a lead learner role. We'll use your language.
Yeah. Like it.
How did you begin to shift the culture of the school, and not just around the policies as well, but actually helping change people's hearts and habits?
Hard work. How to change people's hearts and habits. I had just glibly said hard work, but actually it has been the repeated every day, same message, consistency. My husband always talks about consistency being key. And you know yourself, the moment something is unexpected, it damages your trust in it. It damages your faith in it. And I had to lead by example. So, from the classroom out, and show children in my classroom, firstly, how it felt to be loved. The time at which I joined this school, I had just had a really tricky time in my personal life where I wanted to leave education. I didn't want to be part of it. It felt dark. Again, I don't mean that in a twee way, but my health had suffered significantly, and I just distrusted the entire system, but I needed to earn some money. And so the only thing I felt I could do was teach, and was drawn here by a supply teaching agency who said, oh, nobody ever stays. It's a really tough place to be. So that rebuild, reconcile, recover journey began. And the moment I walked in here for my trial lesson to see whether or not they wanted me, just the desire in me to give what I knew I could to not just a school but a community was overwhelming, and it gave me back what I hadn't had, a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging. And so coming from a place where I knew what it felt like not to have that, began the job of building stone by stone, brick by brick. And that has been really hard. So I go back to your previous question about people who challenge a relationship approach, and who maybe think it's softer. We have this will be my 9th year here. Since starting, there have been over 50 changes of staff. And that's because I expect people to uphold the shining mantra, to live it, to breathe it. It isn't a place where you can just turn up, do your job and go home. And that's asking a lot of people. That's asking for commitment of a different sort, commitment of your heart and your soul. And so bit by bit, parents' evening after parents' evening, conversations with parents at the door after conversations with parents at the door, go through the suspension process and see the damage that's done, doing school attendance panel meetings on the doorsteps of homes, meeting people where they are to do the job of educating. COVID was paramount in that journey. COVID was I look back on it as such a harvest, if you like, of hope, because we became the place that people knew they would, or began to know they would have a smile. So I became head in the September, and in the following March was when the entire country went into lockdown. So the opportunities to have been seen and heard were quite minimal. And so it was a real chance to show that I meant all of that rhetoric, that we would meet people, that we would visit people, that we were ringing over 100 families a day just for a chat, just to say, how's it going? And we'd be put on the phone to children to try and help, to support, to stand alongside, and to galvanise those relationships that previously hadn't just gone unvalued, they'd been decimated. Our community had essentially been told, you're never going to amount to anything, and then left to complete that cycle. And changing the culture, you get all the analogies. Turning an oil tanker was my favourite, because you don't realise it's turning until you're facing the opposite direction. And I'd really say that's how it's been. I have a panic button sat next to my computer here that was fitted after one of those dreadful experiences with a volatile family that were in desperate need after unearthing a human trafficking ring of children in our school family. This has not been carved out of some woolly, fanciful, isn't everything jolly and rose-tinted journey. This has been earned by walking with people, standing alongside them at their darkest time. And so the idea of light really does guides me. So how's it been created? Through hard work, through doing what I've said I'll do, and not faltering on that.
Have you ever encountered an adult or child's behaviour that has felt difficult, overwhelming, or challenging? Have you sometimes felt at a loss of what to do, or know that you didn't handle it quite right? People are complex and unpredictable, and their behaviour can be like the weather. We've all made the mistake of looking out the window and feeling safe to wear shorts, but 5 minutes later wishing for an umbrella. But what if, like a weatherman, you understood how humidity, temperature and pressure all come together to cause the weather, allowing you to better prepare, predict and respond, and prevent ever having a picnic ruined by a thunderstorm ever again? My book, called Targeting the Positive with Behaviours that Challenge, helps you to become the weatherman of behaviour. It provides you with a toolkit to increase competency, confidence, resilience and empathy, so you feel more assured about how to respond to distressed or dysregulated behaviours in others, including those affected by trauma, mental health, neurodiversity, learning disabilities or dementia. Build better connections, achieve de-escalation and improve outcomes for yourself and those you engage with my celebrated 6-stage target model, a step-by-step process to reduce distress for everyone. Discover my empowering, person-centered guide in Targeting the Positive, written by me, Andy Baker, available from online bookstores worldwide. Find a link in the description and order today. Tell us a little bit more about obviously I mentioned in the introduction, the being the light is something that's big for you, big for the school. And I know we spoke about that last time. Please share a little bit more about that concept.
Yeah, it's something that oddly has become very popular in the shops recently. You know, you can buy notebooks and pens and all sorts of it in. I like to think that that's our universe listening to us.
You're an influencer, Fiona.
Oh, yes. I strike you as an influencer, don't I? We are a church school, proudly a Church of England primary school, which means our commitment to upholding what the National Society set out in the 1800s is as strong as it's ever been. And that commitment was to bring education to everybody, regardless of whether you're Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, an agnostic, a Scientologist, doesn't matter. If you're a person, you are welcome here. And I very quickly in my supply teachership here became aware of this phrase that so many different entities would say to me, oh, that school, oh, it's such a dark place, or my favourite is where the Dementors go to train. I thought, oh, great. So it appeared really simply to me that the antidote to darkness is light. And whilst I can still be reverent to our church school foundations with grounding that in scripture, Christian scripture, from Matthew, I am the light of the world, I was able to suggest a vision that wasn't synonymous with a religion, that actually bridged any gap, socioeconomic, language, background, heritage, you name it. If you talk about light, you're not provoking anybody into extreme views or feeling excluded. That was what I wanted to establish, was that with light, and we use a lighthouse because the kind of symbolism of a lighthouse is it guides, it celebrates and it warns. And I thought, as a school, that's a great thing to be known for. And you don't fire cannons, you simply stand and shine. And so I then listened to the inauguration of President Joe Biden, where Amanda Gorman presented her poem about light. Well, it wasn't actually. It was called The Hill We Climb, and it was so profound for me. In fact, that's who is behind me up there. The poem ends with the words, "For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." And that was a pivotal moment for me. This 22-year-old who'd just overcome a speech impediment less than 2 years previously, speaking to the world at the inauguration of a president of America, talking about light in dark times. And I felt, the universe is speaking to me. So where people are in despair, where distrust has become that default emotion, we all hide behind a shield, which is a screen, don't we? Whether it's a phone or a tablet or a computer, it inhibits the kind of serendipity of life. You miss moments to connect. And so what I mean by try to be the light is, in those moments of darkness, whatever that is for people, in the moments of joy, this idea of I can't remember the phrase now, but basically compassionate joy, feeling somebody else's joy at the same intensity as though it were yours, is such an empowering, rejuvenating, restorative thing that why would you not want a school to be run on that kind of jet fuel? Because it really does change perspectives, it changes lives. And because we've got so many languages here, that idea of turning on the light or being the light is something that we can dual code very easily without approaching on cultural differences or religious differences. And it means that we're connecting more than performing, because on this thing we perform, but if we're in real life, we connect. And the one kind of warning that comes with is when you shine a light, it by default shines in the places that you would usually keep quite private. And I go back to the conversation around shame, those things that we all have, that 10% of us that we'd really rather nobody knew, that's how we think and feel with our internal monologue, may pop up, and we may have to deal with that together. Brené Brown is one of my heroes. I don't read much. I don't kind of feel I need to, but her dare to lead is centered around being a light, being vulnerable, rumbling with vulnerability. And those are words that we've magpied here, so that we can sit in a room, whether that's SLT or staff meeting or family consultation evening or an appeal panel or a attendance panel, you name it. If we can rumble, if we can have an agreed language whereby we feel seen, we feel heard, we feel safe because we're connected, and it's cloaked in light, then the shame is okay, it's safe. We walk that path tentatively together and come away changed. In other words, our spirit, our soul has grown as a result. And being the light can sometimes consume you as well. The whole thing of a candle speaks profoundly to me. I do know that by giving light, I often end up depleting my own reserves of energy for my family. So I have to be really careful of that. But our staff team are awesome at saying, let me step in there, can I help? And then it self-fulfills. That's a bit Celestine prophecy-esque in that exchange of energy becomes natural.
So you just kind of mentioned there a little bit as far as the candle analogy is really powerful as far as that you're giving that light, but you got to recognize obviously you're going to be burning out as a result of that if you're not careful. So what's one practice that helps your staff to stay grounded, connected, and not burnt out?
Oh, we laugh all of the time. We are ridiculously stupid, and we try and be reverent and respectful, but light-hearted at the same time. We work really closely with a local pastor who brings us what Lidl won't use at the end of the day. Once a week, she brings this huge box of pastries and sugar. And, you know, when one person is in darkness, the other is a light. And that's how we stay kind of full, if you like. I mean, what kind of a school has a staff WhatsApp thread that every single member of staff is on and it just gets posted on with, I don't know, let's go out. Last week there was an escape room and a scare fest to go to during half term. There's news of family announcements, there's sadness, there's joy shared together, because where there's sadness, it's easier to carry. Where there's joy, it magnifies. So we do all sorts. I'm really mindful that well-being is about being well, and not just on a Wednesday. It's all of the time in everything. And so when we redesigned the curriculum very recently, we used the NHS 5 ways to well-being as the cornerstones for every lesson taught every day by every member of staff, not just for the children, so that we are being kept well as well. And again, it goes back to your question about how that culture has been created. When people are in need, regardless of that need, we see how we can meet that. And sometimes people don't like the answer, but it helps again build trust. Sometimes the answer is no to the request. But taking a longer term view, when that's reflected upon, invariably staff can see the value of it. We use once a term, so 6 times a year, we use gratitude journals for each other as part of our appraisal process. So did a lot of research into the value of gratitude physically, you know, and the impact that practicing gratitude can have. And we did loads of that for children for ages, and they'd all got journals and you know, and never the staff. And so as part of the appraisal process, which if you're not careful can just be a paperwork exercise, introduced our gratitude journals. And once a term, you pick up just a random book off the pile, not your own, and you offer your gratitude to another member of the staff team, and then you leave it for them. I then redistribute them and people can read those. It's always about those things that you admire from afar, but perhaps never say, but that need appreciating, that need giving value to. And how do we keep well? Well, that's another way, because you know when someone's received their gratitude journal, because they're extra boingy, they feel validated. And it doesn't matter how old you get, you love the equivalent of a sticker on your jumper, don't you? And that's what that is. So a huge tapestry, but we mostly just laugh. Find any opportunity to be silly, to play on the playground with the children. You know, so many people do break duty with their hands in their pockets, stood still, with their neck in a scarf. And that's the most recent culture shift I've noticed. We recently underwent some CPD as an entire staff for a new approach to PE called Beyond the Physical. And it is exactly what it says on the tin. You go beyond simply learning to throw or catch, and you look at the benefits of problem solving and leadership and turn taking and being creative in terms of adapting rules or the expectations of the game. And staff have had to lead on that. And as a result, at playtime, you can't actually identify where staff are because they're usually the main tigger of the group, or they're the rope turner, and you come back in from break time or lunchtime duty feeling changed. Your spirit has been tended to. So that's how we keep well. And today we're competing on.
But yeah, play. That's wonderful to hear the staff are engaging in it as well, because recognizing the value of it.
We can't only model certain things, can we?
Yeah.
And so if you want children to play well together, you need to show them how to do that. One of my favourite phrases I inspect church schools, and one of my favourite phrases is we have to learn to disagree well, and modelling good disagreements is part and parcel of taking part in those games or role plays or whatever you like to call it. So yeah, lunchtime, break time is fun. Can you believe it? Put fun in the mix, and suddenly the whole day's different.
Big time. I love that.
Music's been hugely transformative here. Just before we started to chat, we just had Monday Praise, which is there's no chairs, nobody sits down. We just spend 20 minutes using music to change how we feel, music and movement. And that can be all sorts, from worshipful music to I've discovered an amazing couple of people on YouTube who you wouldn't want more than 5 minutes worth of, because your heart would explode. But the joy of doing that together, every single member of the team is in the hall with the children, moving, pretending this morning to be a cowboy. It makes a difference when children can see that you are committed to them. They'll commit to you.
And that's demonstrating well-being and role modelling well-being as well, isn't it? Which is so important. Love that.
And often
I'm going to be applying for a job.
That modelled conversation, that modelled narrative at the end between myself and a member of staff. How are you feeling now? Oh, do you know, Mrs. Booth, I feel so much better. I feel more awake. The headache I'd got has gone, and it's because I moved my body. And that language of spirituality, that language of wellness is well versed now.
And narrating it so that the children get it explicitly rather than just...
Absolutely. You can't do that kind of by osmosis. Children need to know what they're associating this feeling with in terms of the words that they can hang it on. And
fantastic.
So, music has been pivotal too.
Beautiful. So... I've gone through quite a bit. You've covered some amazing stuff in there. So let's go to one of the questions I've got, which is, if you could change one thing about how schools are run nationally, what would it be?
Oh, you're just giving me one.
I'll let you do more, but start with one.
This was the one that scared me when I read this. If I could change one thing about the way schools are run, I'd go back to what I've already said about data. If the data we collect doesn't improve the lives of the children, then why are we collecting it? It is the way we collect data, whether that's through Ofsted or through tests. And I totally adhere to the fact that we need a quality assurance measure of some sort. But if the impact isn't improving lives of children, I don't know why we're doing it in the way that we're doing it. So I'm sorry to repeat an answer, but that would be it.
Yeah, it's a conversation I was having just this morning about exactly that, the fact that there seems to be this hyper focus on outcomes sometimes, but not necessarily the right ones. They lose that child-centeredness sometimes, don't they?
I don't know that I've got the answer to how we would do that differently per se, but if the outcome for a child is that they've been able to engage in a conversation and look at you, why are we not measuring that? I mean, we've tried here to alter the way we write IEPs, individual education plans, so that they're called My Time to Shine booklets. They are totally focused on what you can do, not the oodles and oodles of things that somebody somewhere once said everybody should be able to do. All of the progress that you are making. And it's a narrative changer. It's an absolute game changer, because once again, we validate that from the moment you walk through the door, we loved having you in this building because look, you picked up your pencil, you remembered a finger space, you took a turn, you waited, you used your timer, I don't know, you used your destruction box rather than the classroom. Yeah, so I think it's the way we collect data that I would change.
I love the obviously my big philosophy, my from my book Targeted to Positive, is all about that kind of recognizing, shifting our expectations to rather than where we think somebody should be to where they actually are, and then starting to recognize the positives and also focusing on what behavior do we want. Like, how often do we catch, you say, the behavior going, rather than going, oh, they did that again today, but they did that and they did that and they did that, and suddenly, as you say, it's part of that well-being as well, isn't it? As far as, a teacher going home at the end of the day, kind of referring to, oh, I caught that kid being bad 7 times today. Suddenly going, but I caught them being good 20 times, or they succeeded in something 20 times. Suddenly the positivity that you feel as a person is going to change over the course of the day because of that.
And your value, the narrative that you're telling yourself changes. And part of the IEP process, but actually part of the tapestry is other children can offer comments for that child's IEP. Oh, Miss Smith, did you just see so-and-so do that? That needs to go in their Shine booklet. And then, you start to find that you walk down the corridor and it takes you 3 times as long because anyone you've passed has not only greeted you, but asked in order to find out how you are and offered something in return, and at the weekend I read this or I did that. And that's why behaviour shifts.
So on that front, what do you wish that Ofsted or the Department of Education leaders understood about real behaviour change in schools?
That it takes time, that it's not a one-stop shop, but actually the common thread is connection. And if you're going to build anything that stands the test of time, it needs to be built upon real life connection where people feel. So the way we greet each other in worship, in the hall, when we all come together as a family, is we need to make sure that everyone feels welcome, valued, heard, seen and loved. How are we going to do that? So rather than good morning, everybody, a child will choose the way in which we make sure we each feel welcome, valued, heard, seen and loved. So it can be we'll hop on one leg, it can be we'll hug, we'll high five, we'll say hello in our home language. It doesn't matter. We will do whatever that child suggests or member of staff suggests. And I think I go back to the previous answer about data. Data will change if we invest in connectivity, if we invest in each other. It will always be an uphill battle if all we are after is a test outcome. So I wish they understood that human beings require their basic needs to be met before they can do anything else. And once they are met, my word, the possibilities are endless. Yeah. I do find it odd because these people are human, and therefore these people make a decision. They are human, and therefore they know what matters to them. So I do find there just seems to be this disconnect, this lack of empathy sometimes. But I read something about the word reaction and creation. So those 2 words are made up of the same letters. It just depends on where you put the C, and so from where you see. And I think we are always governed by people who are in that reactive space rather than creative. And if only they could see,
change the perspective.
Absolutely. I heard, you'll maybe know the word, I heard something on the radio a long time ago about a word in Japanese. In Japanese, there's one word and it means both of these things. It means crisis and opportunity, depending on the context in which you use it. And that really fascinated me from the perspective of education and how opportunities are often seen as crises. But if we were to just see those opportunities as that, as a gift, rather than a crisis, then, a crisis of, I don't know, what have we had recently? Housing crisis. Well, actually, there's an opportunity there to think differently, isn't there? Funding crisis. Well, actually, there's an opportunity to think differently. Send crisis. Well, actually, there's an opportunity to really be creative. So, yeah, that's what I tell them. Create rather than react.
Let's say there's a principle. There was a talk I listened to the other day where somebody was going, "No, you should always think positively," and actually, that I don't think that's true. As long as you are. But the negative, the crisis, the difficult, the uphill bit is actually an opportunity for you to grow from, to learn that something's not okay there. And therefore, by feeling that pain, because we tend to have these emotions that we tend to have as negative emotions, sadness, grief, things like that. But actually, they're all about information. That's all they are. The same as pain. If I didn't experience pain, my foot would have dropped off by now because I wouldn't have realized I'd hurt my foot.
Yeah.
It's so important that as long as we use it as an opportunity to go, something's not okay. How can I grow? How can I build? How can I be more? How can I overcome? And I think that's what speaks volumes from your approach in everything you've said so far.
Michelle Obama said, being real and vulnerable is a pillar of true intimacy. And you can't be real if you're not prepared to be vulnerable, because we all feel it. And I think staff here would say one of the changes for them, and what sometimes overwhelms new members of staff, is how prepared I am to put language, to put words to the way I'm feeling. I can't assume the way you're feeling, but I can say, this is how it feels for me. Does any of that kind of resonate for you? And once there's that kind of intimacy, you can accomplish much more than ever you imagined.
So there has been uphill times for you, I'm sure. So what drives you? Absolutely. So what drives you on the hard days, the days where everything does feel uphill?
We are in such a privileged position as teachers, as educators, working in schools. We are gifted every day, people's children. I can't imagine a much more privileged position to be in. And I'm a mum and a stepmum, and I want somebody to know that in front of them is a gift unlike any other in the world. And I know it sounds twee, but it genuinely is what happens each and every day when it's hard. Children deserve joy. They deserve light. They deserve to know that they are special to the world. And for so many children here, as within lots of schools, if not me, then who? And I cannot fathom, I can't carry the weight of thinking that I haven't given them that. And so when things either personally or professionally seem too much to carry, being ruthlessly caring, that kind of paradox is what keeps me going, knowing that somebody else will benefit if I hold the door open, if I smile, if I put my hand on their shoulder, if I reach out to them. And And then the team that I work with are relentlessly caring. And so on the difficult days, and times, because they last, don't they? They step in, they step up. They remind me of how far we've come, of things that we've achieved that we wouldn't ever dare dream of. And then I can't answer that question without talking about my own family. You know, my husband is, I don't really have adequate words for the support that he gives me to enable me to do what I do here. The selflessness he shows me is what I try and emulate here. He is the consummate supporter, just cheerleaders, you know, champions what we do, because he can see that when I see a child or their family able to do something independently of me, that's what keeps me going.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So we're kind of running out of time a little bit. There's kind of one more question that I really wanted to get out of you. And I know this is going to be difficult for you again, because it just says one. So we'll allow potentially more than. What's one story from your school that makes you emotional and reminds you of why this work matters?
I'm going to continue the data thread, because SATS results day, I'm always, you know, in about 3 different hats, because as head teacher, you're supposed to assume this, you know, stereotypical role. And part of fulfilling your potential has to be a child achieving the very best that they're capable of in academics. I can't escape that. I absolutely want our children to fly academically. And this last year, we had a girl in year 6 who was still on the phonics programme when she was in year 4, so aged 8 and 9. She was a young carer. She'd got some really quite specific learning needs. And she was just brilliant. I took her to number 10 Downing Street, actually. And that is not the story, going to number 10, believe it or not. But she was the child who came all wide-eyed and said to me when we got there, Mrs. Booth, they put ice cubes in my cup of tea. It's perfect. And I thought, oh, ice cubes, that's a really great idea, you know, kind of temper the temperature. No, it was sugar cubes, but she'd never, ever seen a sugar cube. So, you know, ice cubes. So still at phonics, age 9, and in her reading SATs paper, she was at expected. Just 2 years later, she went to secondary school, able to read, able to make sense of what she was reading, able to unlock whatever door she comes across because she could read. And that was a really pivotal moment. And she'd no idea the amount of tears she'd created behind the office door because she was just doing her thing. And I will remember that forever. Because if you'd told me, not even 24 months before that she would be able to just stride out into the world with that kind of level of awesome, I wouldn't have disbelieved it, but I'd have thought, oh, there's some hard work to be done. And she just took it in her stride and shone. So it's a peculiar one for you, but yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, Fiona, it's genuinely been an honour to speak to you. And as I said last time when we when we last spoke that your passion does come over in every word that you say. I can tell you are living by the shine the light kind of rule. So definitely, I should imagine that there's an infectious smile that often walks down the corridor that is shared by all the staff and the pupils. So thank you so much for joining me and telling me a bit about what you do.
Thank you for seeing us, for making us feel valued. It will translate out into the corridors. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. So if any of you have found the stuff that we've talked about useful, interesting, you'd like to find out a little bit more about what Fiona is doing at school, then please reach out to us, like, comment and share, and we'll make sure you connect over. Otherwise, thank you.